Jewel Plummer Cobb, born 1924, died 2017. African American cell biologist. Jewel Plummer Cobb is known for her contributions to the field of cell biology and for promoting minority involvement in the sciences. She has focused much of her research on melanin, a brown or black skin pigment, and the factors that affect the causes and growth of normal and cancerous pigment cells. Her research into the effects of drugs on cancer cells was important to future work in the field of chemotherapy. As an educator, Cobb initiated a number of programs to encourage ethnic minorities and women in the sciences. Born in Chicago on January 17, 1924, Cobb was the only child of Frank V. Plummer, a doctor and graduate of Cornell University, and Carrie Bell Cole Plummer, who taught dance in public schools and participated in the Works Projects Administration (WPA) efforts. Cobb's family had a history in the sciences. Not only was her father a doctor, but her paternal grandfather was a pharmacist who had graduated from Howard University in 1898. As an upper-middle-class African-American, Cobb was exposed to a variety of African-American professionals through her parents, all accomplished in their fields. She also socialized with well-off peers during her summers at a northern Michigan resort. Although the schools in Chicago were largely segregated, Cobb received a solid public school education bolstered by her exposure to her father's library at home. Her interest in biology was sparked in her sophomore year by her first look through the lens of a microscope. A member of her high school's honor society, Cobb attended the University of Michigan after graduation. She was drawn there partly by the knowledge that some of her summer friends would be there, and by the university's nationally known football team. The segregation she had experienced in public schools continued in college. However, all the African-American students had to live in one house. After 3 semesters at Michigan, Cobb transferred to Alabama's Talladega College, and in 1944 she graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in biology. She then accepted a teaching fellowship at New York University, which had at first turned her down. Her poise and credentials finally tipped the scales in her favor. She maintained her fellowship for 5 years and undertook graduate studies in cell physiology. By 1950, Cobb had completed her master's degree and doctorate. Because she enjoyed research and a theoretical approach to biology, Cobb decided to become a cell biologist. As a cell biologist, her focus was the action and interaction of living cells. She was particularly interested in tissue culture, in which cells are grown outside of the body and studied under microscopes. Among her most important work was her study with Dorothy Walker Jones of how new cancer-fighting drugs affected human cancer cells. As a researcher, Cobb has held a series of positions at various colleges and research facilities throughout the United States. She was a fellow at the National Cancer Institute for 2 years after receiving her doctorate, and from 1952 to 1954, she was the director of the Tissue Culture Laboratory at the University of Illinois. At the end of this period, Cobb married, and in 1957, she and her husband had a son, Roy Jonathan Cobb. After leaving Illinois, Cobb worked at several universities, including New York University and Hunter College in New York, and in 1960, she was appointed professor of biology at Sarah Lawrence College. There, Cobb taught and continued her research into skin pigment. She was particularly interested in melanoma, or skin cancer, and melanin's ability to protect skin from damage caused by ultraviolet light. In 1969, 2 years after she and her husband divorced, Cobb was appointed Dean of Connecticut College and Professor of Zoology. In addition to teaching and continuing her research, she established a privately funded pre-medical graduate program and a pre-dental program for minority students. Numerous other colleges used these programs as models for their own. But after she left in 1976, the programs at Connecticut were discontinued. From 1976 to 1981, Cobb served as Dean and Professor of Biological Sciences at Douglas College. Although she had to give up her research in order to fulfill her administrative and teaching obligations, she continued to press for the advancement of minorities and women in the sciences. Cobb wrote about the difficulties women face in scientific fields in a 1979 paper, Filters for Women in Science, published in the book Expanding the Role of Women in the Sciences, which was edited by Anne M. Briscoe and Sheila M. Pathlin. In this piece, Cobb argued that various pressures, particularly in the educational system, act as filters that prevent many women from choosing science careers. The socialization of girls has tended to discourage them from pursuing math and the sciences from a very early age, and even those women who got past such obstacles have struggled to get university tenure and the same jobs at equal pay as men. In 1981, Cobb was named president at California State University in Fullerton. She was extremely active in initiating improvements for the campus, notably in obtaining state funding for a new engineering and computer science building and a new science building. In addition, she built an apartment complex for students, later named in her honor, ending the university's years as a commuter campus, and established the President's Opportunity Program for ethnic students. Her work also extended to the community, for which she founded a privately funded gerontology center. Cobb became a trustee professor at California State College in Los Angeles in 1990, and in 1991, she was made principal investigator for Southern California Science and Engineering, ACCESS Center and Network. A trustee of several colleges with numerous honorary degrees, Cobb worked with a consortium of 6 colleges to raise private funds to replace diminishing government grants and fellowships for minorities in science and engineering. The group worked to motivate minorities in the sciences to bring more of them into the field. Over the years, Cobb had become increasingly aware of the disparity between the number of black men in sports and those in the lab, for instance. As part of her group's effort, faculty members tutored students on an individual basis in order to solidify their math skills, which Cobb felt were a crucial foundation for a career in the sciences. President Emeritus of CSU since 1990, Cobb continues to use her skill as an educator, administrator, and scientist to promote the educational needs and careers of minorities in the sciences. Citations and sources are in the description.